Go ahead and take him first. Pat him down. And then, Lisa, can you sit with us? Please?
A 13-year-old life departed in innocence, but even the police also could bring the murderer to justice. Hello, I'm Mr. High, a 90-year-old man who loves telling strange, dark, and mysterious stories. If you want to keep hearing true stories that make your heart beat faster than usual, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on the notification bell. That will give me more motivation to tell you things that you might never believe are real. At 9:30 in the morning, a quiet neighborhood in Albuquerque suddenly echoed with the loudspeakers of the Special Police Unit. The door of a house on Pearl Street creaked open inch by inch. A young man slowly stepped out, facing gun barrels locked on target and the growls of police dogs. But what shook the entire city was not the movie-like raid, but the lingering question from weeks before. Why did a 13-year-old boy die in what seemed like random gunfire in broad daylight? And who actually pulled the trigger? In August 2024, 13-year-old Michael Tubb sat in the passenger seat of a car driven by a 17-year-old girl. The familiar street suddenly turned into a shooting range when bullets flew from a strange vehicle. Glass shattered, the car body dented deeply, the smell of gunpowder mixed with burning plastic. The girl was rushed to the hospital with a gunshot wound, while Michael collapsed on the spot and did not survive. At the scene, the physical evidence told a story colder than any words. The holes in the windshield formed the characteristic cone of fracture, indicating the trajectory of the bullets. The scatter marks on the interior showed at least one bullet had passed through an obstruction before hitting its target, consistent with a moving car-to-car shooting at high speed. There was no soot or gunpowder tattooing on the victim, proving the distance was far enough to rule out a close-range confrontation. In drive-by shootings, shell casings are often retained inside the shooter's vehicle if a semi-automatic weapon is used, so the scene rarely has casings to trace barrel serial numbers or match firing pin impressions. In other words, the key did not lie on the roadside, but in the car that fired the shots and then disappeared. Two lifelines for the investigation were the people and the vehicle. Witnesses pointed out that it was a specific Lexus model, distinguishable by the body lines and headlight design. From there, investigators reconstructed the journey using area surveillance cameras and automated license plate recognition, stitching together frames to filter out vehicles matching the description moving around the time of the shooting. By the following month, an unexpected lead came not from a camera, but from Facebook Marketplace. Someone had just listed, then sold, the exact same Lexus model. The online transaction left a clear digital trail: photos of the VIN, meeting arrangements in messages, transfers, or receipts. The trail led directly to a 22-year-old name, Michael Flores. On October 3rd, the arrest warrant was executed at house number 303 on Pearl Street. The SWAT team deployed by the book, loudspeakers ordering those inside to step out unarmed, advance step by step under instruction, K9 units blocking escape routes. The man was safety checked, searched for weapons, quickly questioned about others or pets inside, then handcuffed and taken away for investigators to proceed. In the body camera footage, parts blurred for confidentiality, it was still clear Flores exited his door under heavy control, with police procedures executed precisely according to risk control protocols for potentially armed suspects. The first twist came from Flores's own words while being escorted. He described stopping near a road sign, someone jumping out, and then a girl starting to fire. Was that self-defense in words or a missing puzzle piece? Right after arresting Flores, police also arrested another 21-year-old man, known to be the son of an FBI agent. Both men were handcuffed, but official statements confirmed the shooter was not Flores. Lining up these pieces made the picture strange. Why mention a female shooter when both arrested were male? Three possibilities opened at once. 1. Flores deliberately misled, inventing a female figure to minimize his role. 2. There was indeed a female participant, not yet named publicly as she remained under investigation. 3. Pronouns were confused amid the chaos, but other descriptions still aligned with the co-offender driving and the shooter firing.
Who's to pulling the trigger?
Here's the car. Here's my car. Here's the stop sign, the red light. I stop, barely. He jumps out as I'm stopping.
To separate truth from falsehood, criminal investigation does not rely on feelings. It relies on physical evidence and objective data. On the Lexus traced through Facebook Marketplace, technicians would look for things most people think erased, but that remain. Microscopic glass shards from the victim's car lodged in plastic seams, streaks of metal and tiny gouges on door edges showing the angle of a gun barrel protruding, fabric fibers with gun smoke residue inside air vents forced in by the blast pressure. If someone fired from inside, chances were high of lead and nitrate residue on the passenger armrest, door handle, or seatbelt. The suspect's phone, once searched under warrant, could tell a timeline more precise than memory. Location history, cell tower signals, even accelerometer data showing a sudden break at the exact moment of the shooting. Bullet fragments recovered from the victim's car could reveal caliber, bullet type, then be cross-referenced with other shootings in the area if the same weapon was used. Every small detail spoke its part, and once enough gathered, the crowd of data would challenge or confirm every testimony. Many asked why police first used the word random. In criminology, vehicle-to-vehicle gunfire in the street is not always targeted. Sometimes it stems from sudden conflict, misunderstanding, or crossing paths with someone hunting another victim. To determine if it was targeted, investigators look at tailing patterns before the shooting on camera, prior interactions between victim and suspect, as well as whether the shooter circled back to confirm results. In this case, public evidence at the time of arrest did not show a long tracking sequence, so the random hypothesis was raised. But hypothesis is only a starting point, not a conclusion. The fact the Lexus changed hands right after suggested another motive: cover-up. Those familiar with concealment tricks often think selling the car is enough. They don't know the VIN appears in multiple locations. Dust inside air ducts preserves travel history like a black box. And receipts on social media are the shortest road to police knocking on the door. The second twist lay in the identity of the other young accomplice. The son of a federal agent arrested in connection with a fatal shooting was a detail that stirred public outcry. But for investigators, family background did not change the equation. Who drove? Who fired? Who planned? Who knew the intent to kill? The law demands answers grounded in evidence, not names. If physical proof points to a trigger man different from the driver, the charges would clearly separate the direct killer from the accomplice under the principle of joint participation in a dangerous act. Police had handcuffed Michael Flores, but everything was not over. One unchanging principle of investigation: never fully trust what you see at the beginning. Therefore, even once the suspect was subdued, the SWAT team still had to enter the Pearl Street house to verify if anyone else was inside. The loudspeaker echoed,
How do you want me to call? How do you want me to take the car?
Pearl Drive Northeast. This is the Albuquerque Police Department SWAT team. We have a search warrant for the residence. You need to step out with your hands up.
"This is Albuquerque Police. We have a search warrant. Step outside with both hands raised." Every door opening could be a potential danger, and each dark room was searched carefully. The later video was blurred, but reports confirmed no one else was in the house. By December 4th of that same year, Flores had been in jail for weeks, officially charged with murder. But the turning point of the case came when investigators pressed further into his testimony. Flores admitted he was not the shooter, but the driver. The trigger man he named was Thomas Acey, 21, the son of an FBI agent. This was a shocking detail, because that identity immediately led the public to ask, was there protection behind the scenes? In the interrogation room, Flores said his relationship with Acey began with drug deals. Flores said bluntly, "I used to sell cocaine to him and to many of his friends. We were just friends of friends." From a shady transaction, they happened to be together that night. Acey met someone, a person he said had once shot at his car and robbed him at a party. Right there, Acey told the story, his eyes flashing with unresolved hatred. Flores claimed he wanted to leave, did not want involvement, but Acey demanded, "Turn back. I just want to see which car he gets into." This is a common tactic in revenge cases. Perpetrators rarely act immediately, but often follow, confirm information, to prepare for the next strike. Flores testified that he drove around as requested, and when AC realized he had identified the wrong person, Flores wanted to go home. It was then, according to Flores, that AC pulled out a gun, pointed it at him, and forced him to return downtown. From an investigator's perspective, this was the crux. Was he a willing accomplice or someone coerced at gunpoint? Forensic psychology calls this compelled behavior. When a gun is at your head, the capacity to resist is nearly zero. But in law, the boundary is fragile because any continued action that supports the crime can still become complicity. Flores continued, they circled back and AC correctly identified the car. Tragically, the people inside were not his old enemies, but two innocent teenagers, one of them 13-year-old Michael Tubb. Even in Flores' account, he seemed unaware that the fatal loop had just closed. Just one decision to turn the wheel, one follow a little longer that seemed harmless, led to tragedy. When AC raised the gun, Michael Tubb's fate was sealed within seconds. The chilling twist here lay in Flores' emphasis. He had tried multiple times to leave, but AC grew angry, pointed the gun, and forced him to return. If true, Flores was both a crucial witness and the link to the real killer. But if it was only an excuse, he had crafted a narrative of being forced to escape the role of active accomplice. In criminal investigation, such details are cross-checked with objective data. The car's GPS location, traffic cameras, speed data from the black box, even whether gunshot residue was found on Flores. Every tiny detail, whether a speck of dust in a door seam or a message history on a phone, could expose the truth. The case was not only a story about gunfire. It was a complex portrait of criminal psychology, of youthful recklessness driven by drugs and violence, and of the fragility of an innocent life. Michael Tubb knew nothing of that feud, yet bore the fatal outcome. And in retrospect, what chills us most is the utter meaninglessness of the entire chain of events. A vague grudge, a mistaken identification, a single decision to circle back. All combined, and in just a few minutes, they stole away the life of a boy. This is the trap of crime. It does not only kill the target, but also kills those who happen to cross its path. And sometimes it makes us wonder, was Flores an accomplice or also a victim pulled into an inescapable spiral? A gunshot rang out in what seemed like an ordinary street and within seconds turned a meaningless ride into tragedy. Michael Flores, in the interrogation room, recounted that fateful moment with a trembling voice. He said when the car stopped not yet fully, Thomas AC, sitting beside him, suddenly jumped out and fired repeatedly. The sharp cracks tore through the air, windows shattered, shards of glass pierced flesh. A ringing in his ears left him paralyzed. Flores admitted there was a moment he thought he too would die, because a bullet grazed past his head, slicing through the roof just above his seat, missing death by a chillingly narrow margin. The Lexus Flores drove that day quickly became evidence number one. He testified he had bought it off Facebook Marketplace for $10,000, money earned from selling cocaine. Right after the shooting, Thomas told him, "The only thing that can incriminate us is the car." And then a cover-up plan took shape. On Flores' phone, investigators found multiple searches about changing the grille, rims, even about listing the car for sale with false information. In fact, the car was a 2015 model, but when posted on Facebook, he deliberately listed it as 2014. A small detail, but one that revealed the intent to blur traces, something any seasoned investigator would spot immediately. Faced with relentless questioning, Flores could not deny the photograph investigators showed. The picture captured Thomas holding a semi-automatic pistol, the gun believed to have taken the life of 13-year-old Michael Tubb. When asked, Flores confirmed, yes, that's him. And that gun looks exactly like the one used. A heavy silence filled the room because visual evidence shattered all denials. Another detail that drew police attention was the other car Thomas had used earlier. Flores said Thomas drove a white Genesis riddled with bullet holes from an ambush at a party. That old scar was not only a mark of violence, but a sign of long-brewing revenge obsession. Criminology calls this the compensatory obsession mechanism. Someone once humiliated will try to reclaim status through violence, even when the real target exists only in distorted memory. And the most frightening part is that, in one chaotic night, that personal vendetta descended upon a completely innocent child. The twist lay in Flores' own testimony. He claimed he was only the driver, threatened and dragged in. He insisted he had wanted to leave many times, but Thomas's gun aimed at his head made him a puppet in the killer's hands. Yet forensic data and digital traces would be the final judge. The false car listing, the modification attempts, the search history, all could turn the coerced victim into a conscious accomplice in concealment. The most painful part is that in a confrontation he had nothing to do with, 13-year-old Michael Tubb paid the price. A life cut short by blind hatred, a story in which Flores might be a victim or might be an accomplice. The final truth will only be revealed when every bullet, every dent on the car, every line of phone data speaks. And when that truth is pieced together, it will surely leave us stunned at the horrific cost of a wrong decision made in just a few seconds. Flores recounted that Thomas, the one sitting in the passenger seat beside him, always carried a gun, not to hunt a specific target, but as if it had become a habit, a shadow always present. And it was that very gun, placed right under the floor at his feet, that became the weapon that took the life of Michael Tubb. In his testimony, Flores repeatedly tried to stress that he had no intention of taking part. He said, "If I had been clear-headed that day, I would not have listened to him." That sentence revealed a truth. Flores was in a blurred mental state, manipulated. And Thomas, long obsessed with a past ambush, planted in Flores's mind veiled threats. "If you get caught, you'll get life, just like me." It was a classic psychological tactic, making an accomplice believe there was no way out, that fate was already sealed. Flores admitted his deepest fear began when Thomas managed to show up at his very home, even while he was in custody. No one knew how he had gotten the address, but he appeared, spoke with his girlfriend's mother, and made sweet promises. To put money into his jail account, to hire a good lawyer. But behind the kindness was a clear message. "I know where you live. Don't betray me." Flores confessed it was this invisible threat that kept him silent for months, even though deep down he wanted to confess everything. Thomas even declared that if police came to arrest him, he would shoot it out to the death rather than be cuffed. That declaration was both a sign of his extreme mindset and a crushing pressure on Flores, that he would have to bear the blame, since all outside evidence pointed to him, especially the Lexus listed for sale under his name. When questioned, Flores admitted, yes, it was Thomas who advised him to post the car on Facebook with the wrong model year to avoid being tracked. At first, he resisted, but panic and pressure made him comply. One small detail, changing 2015 to 2014, was enough to turn the act into an attempt to cover up. During interrogation, contradictions became clear. Thomas had said he fired because he saw a gun inside the other car, but Flores immediately countered, "No way. That car had dark tinted windows, all closed. You couldn't see anything inside." This was a scientifically critical detail. In daylight, with tinted windows, from the outside, you can only see shadows, not objects, let alone confirm the presence of a gun. Thomas's claim, if Flores recounted it correctly, was merely a fabricated excuse to justify a reckless killing. The climax came when Flores decided, "Let's go home." He steered into a turning lane, despite the gun beside him. But in the single second he paused to check the intersection, Thomas swung open the door, jumped out, and fired. The cracks rang out, glass exploded, a bullet scraped past Flores's head, tearing through the roof and sunroof. That was the shock that froze him, ears ringing, mind spinning. And right after, an innocent child was struck and killed. Flores was both the key to unlocking the truth and the man caught between accomplice and victim. He was controlled, threatened, psychologically manipulated, but at the same time, he was the driver, the concealer, the one who complied. In law, that boundary is not easy to define. Only forensic science, bullet trajectories, gunshot residue, phone data, traffic cameras can reveal who truly bears responsibility. This story reminds us of a painful truth. Sometimes, just one decision to pause for a few seconds at an intersection is enough to change destinies. An innocent child lost his future. A young man now stands before judgment, and another, born into a powerful family, was willing to turn his friend into a scapegoat. That is the brutal price of silence, of fear, and of blind violence.
Within that time period, he jumps out of the car and starts shooting within like a second, like a 1 to 2 second stop. You know what I mean? I don't know if you know what I mean by that.
Yeah.
I didn't stop the car completely. So he jumps out as it's moving a little bit and starts shooting or whatever. And at this point, I'm like, what the I froze. My ears are all ringing. There's glass all over me and shit. And he almost took my head off too. I found out later that night. There's a bullet graze above the car that went. So my headrest is right here. My head's right here. There's a bullet graze that right here in the car on top of it. And he shattered the sunroof.
Okay.
That's what.
A car stopped at an intersection, a moment lasting less than a few seconds, but it turned into a nightmare for everyone involved. Flores testified that as he prepared to turn right, Thomas, sitting in the passenger seat, suddenly flung open the door and leapt out. Without hesitation, he raised the gun and fired repeatedly. The blasts rang in his ears, the windshield shattered. A bullet skimmed past Flores's head, leaving a gouge in the roof. Physical evidence never lies. The cracked windshield, fragments lodged in the frame, the matching scrape mark confirming that the shooter stood right in front of the hood, firing nearly 20 rounds in just seconds. At that intensity, this was no impulsive act, but clearly a deliberate attack. And once blood had been spilled, the two companions moved into cover-up mode. One prepared a bag to flee, the other hid the gun and urged Flores to ditch his phone to erase traces. But no matter how carefully they calculated, they still made mistakes. In the digital record, there were no texts planning the shooting, but the unusual silence itself exposed intent. Flores said Thomas had warned repeatedly, no texting, no calls, no trace. To investigators, that was the clearest sign. The mastermind knew exactly how to avoid being tracked. The real climax came when news of 13-year-old Michael Tubbs' death appeared in the papers. Flores recalled Thomas showing up at his house, eyes frantic, muttering, "I didn't know I killed that boy."
It was me pretty much until I told my lawyer about this, and she said, no, that's not the case, you know. It's gonna be all right, and that won't happen. So my amazing lawyer brought me here today to do this. I didn't do it before, and I'll get into that. I didn't do this. I wanted to testify, but I couldn't because he showed up to my house whenever I was in jail. He never knew where I lived. I don't know how he found where I lived, but he showed up to my house when I was in jail. When I was in jail the first time or whatever. He showed up to my house when I was in jail the first time, and he talked to Sasha and her mom or whatever. And so, being in jail, I was like, how the does he know where I live? And he was like, I guess when he talked to them, he told them that he was gonna put money on my books, he was gonna pay for my lawyer, he was gonna do this, he was gonna do that, all this stuff. I knew that was his way of don't tell on me, I know where you live, type of thing. So I didn't, and I wanted to, because it was very tempting, but I didn't want my family to get hurt and my girlfriend, so I didn't. And when I got out, he showed up to my house a week later, and it was kind of the same deal. And I just kind of assured him that I'm gonna beat this case. You have nothing to worry about, whatever. And also when he was there, he told me if a cop comes to my house or something, he said I'm gonna go out in a shootout. I'm not going down for this. He told me that he's not gonna go down for this. Basically telling me I have to go down for it because I'm the one who's posted the car on Facebook, even though he said it was a good idea to do it.
Okay.
That half confession was both a release of guilt and a danger signal, because right after, Thomas said bluntly, "I will never let myself be taken alive. If police come, I'll shoot it out to the end." It was a suicidal vow, but also a threat. Anyone who dared stand against him, even an accomplice, would be dragged down too. Flores, trembling, begged police to protect his family. He admitted he would do anything, even testify in court, just to have a chance to live again as a normal person. But in the criminal world, silence and betrayal both demand a price. Investigators knew well that if Thomas were released before trial, Flores's life and his family's would be in danger. So witness protection measures, sealed files, and layers of security were put in place. Yet the final twist came from where no one expected. Last summer, Thomas, the alleged gunman, was found unconscious in his jail cell. Though rushed to medical care, he did not survive. A sudden end, cutting off any chance of a public trial. The crime had taken the life of an innocent boy, but the man said to have pulled the trigger died before facing justice. And Flores, who insisted he was only coerced, at first denied murder. But by February, he unexpectedly pleaded guilty to conspiracy and evidence tampering. He had once hoped his testimony would expose Thomas, but now with his death, the full legal burden fell on Flores. He is set to be sentenced in November, facing up to 20 years in prison. The story closes with a bitter paradox. The only innocent, the child, is dead. The alleged gunman is dead in custody, and the survivor stands before a heavy sentence, torn between the identity of victim or accomplice. The only thing echoing after it all is the harsh truth. Just one moment of firing and hatred sealed the fate of 3 lives forever. In the end, this case is not only about sentences or years in prison. It leaves a scar on society, a warning about recklessness, hatred, and the spiral of crime that can wipe everything away in an instant. An innocent child lost his life, one young man lost his future, and another carried secrets to the grave without ever facing justice. But the most painful truth is this. It all could have been prevented if someone had stopped sooner, if hatred had not been fed, if drugs and violence had not become a way of life. This is a humanitarian lesson etched deeply, that every decision, no matter how small, can change destiny, not only for oneself, but for everyone around. Stop before it's too late. Choose the path of clarity, because one wrong action in a fleeting moment can leave tragedy for a lifetime. Justice can punish, but only compassion and awareness can truly prevent such tragedies from happening again.